Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the New Horizon, watching the alien world grow larger on the main screen. The planet looked beautiful from space, with swirling clouds and vast oceans that reminded him of Earth, but what caught his attention were the strange floating cities that hung in the sky like glittering jewels. "Distance to target 200 kilometers in closing," reported Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez from her station. She was the best communications officer in the fleet, and Jake was glad to have her on this mission. First contact with an alien race was not something you wanted to mess up. "All stations report ready, Captain," said Colonel Rick Barnes, the mission's military advisor. He was a big man with gray hair and serious eyes. Jake had worked with Rick before, and he trusted the colonel's judgment completely. Dr. Lisa Carter looked up from her science station, her face excited. "The energy readings from those cities are incredible, Captain. Their technology must be very advanced to keep structures that size floating in the atmosphere." Jake nodded. The Zephyrians had been sending radio signals into space for over 50 years. Earth scientists had finally figured out how to decode their language and send messages back. After 2 years of careful communication, the aliens had agreed to meet with humans for the first time. "Incoming transmission," Amy announced. "It's from the planet's surface." "Put it on screen," Jake ordered. The main display changed to show a face that was both beautiful and strange. The Zephyrian had pale, almost transparent skin that seemed to glow with a soft light. Their head was longer than a human's, with large dark eyes and no visible nose. 4 thin arms moved gracefully as they spoke. "Greetings, humans of the vessel New Horizon. I am High Counselor Veltar of the Zephyrian Council. We welcome you to our world, though we must admit we are both excited and fearful of this meeting." Jake stepped forward. "Thank you for welcoming us, High Counselor. I am Captain Jake Morrison. We come in peace, hoping to learn about your people and share knowledge of our own." The alien's expression was hard to read, but Jake thought he saw relief. "That is good to hear, Captain Morrison. We will guide your ship to our main city, New Sky. Please follow the beacon we are sending." A bright light appeared on their navigation display, marking a path toward one of the floating cities. Jake gave the order to follow it, and the New Horizon began its approach. "Captain," Dr. Carter said quietly, "I'm reading some unusual energy patterns from the planet's surface. There's a lot of activity down there, but I can't tell what's causing it." "Could be natural," Colonel Barnes suggested. "Volcanic activity, maybe weather patterns we don't understand." But Jake noticed something in the alien's voice when they mentioned being fearful. It wasn't fear of humans, exactly. It was something else, something deeper. The floating city of New Sky was even more impressive up close. It was huge, easily 20 kilometers across, with tall crystal towers that seemed to grow like trees. The entire structure hung in the air, without any visible support, defying everything Jake knew about physics. "Docking bay opening on the lower level," Amy reported. "They're sending us approach vectors." The New Horizon settled gently into the alien docking bay. Through the windows, Jake could see dozens of Zephyrians waiting to greet them. They were all tall and thin, with that same glowing skin and graceful movements. "Remember," Jake told his team, "we're representing all of humanity here. Let's make a good impression." The airlock opened and Jake stepped out first, followed by his officers. The artificial gravity felt normal and the air was breathable, though it had a strange sweet smell. High Counselor Veltar approached them, moving with fluid grace. "Welcome to New Sky, Captain Morrison. We are honored to meet the first humans to visit our world." "The honor is ours," Jake replied, trying to match the alien's formal tone. The tour that followed was amazing. The Zephyrians showed them crystal gardens where plants grew in impossible shapes, powered by the same energy that kept the city floating. They visited halls where alien children learned through musical tones that somehow carried information directly into their minds. But Jake noticed something troubling. Every Zephyrian they met seemed nervous, jumping at sudden sounds and constantly looking over their shoulders. Even more strange, when they reached the observation decks that looked down at the planet's surface, the aliens would not go near the windows. "Your cities are incredible, Dr. Carter said to their guide, a young Zephyrian named Keshra. But why do you build them so high up? The surface of your planet looks beautiful from space. Keshra's skin flickered with darker colors, which Jake was beginning to recognize as a sign of fear. The surface is forbidden, human Lisa. It is the domain of the Devourer. The Devourer? Colonel Barnes asked all the Zephyrians within hearing. Distance stopped what they were doing. Their skin went dark, and they began making soft humming sounds that seemed to calm them. High Counselor Veltar appeared beside them quickly. Please, do not speak of such things here. The young ones are easily frightened. I'm sorry, Jake said. We didn't know. Come, Veltar said. We will speak of this in private. They were led to a quiet chamber with walls that seemed to absorb sound. Once the door closed, the alien's whole manner changed. The graceful confidence was gone, replaced by obvious terror. You must understand, Veltar began. Our people have lived in the sky cities for over 3,000 years. Before that, we tried to live on the surface, but the Devourer would not let us. What exactly is this Devourer? Dr. Carter asked, her scientific curiosity overcoming her diplomacy training. It is death itself, Veltar replied. A creature of nightmare larger than any of your human vehicles. It has armor that cannot be pierced, claws that can cut through metal, and acid that burns through anything. It feeds on all life, and it cannot be reasoned with or stopped. Jake exchanged glances with his officers. Just one creature? One is enough, Veltar said. It has killed thousands of our people throughout history. Any Zephyrian who sets foot on the surface is doomed. The Devourer can smell life from great distances, and it never stops hunting. But surely with your advanced technology, Colonel Barnes suggested, you could find a way to deal with it. The alien's forearms moved in what Jake was learning was a gesture of helplessness. We have tried everything. Weapons, traps, even attempts to communicate with it, nothing works. The Devourer is perfect in its purpose to destroy life. Dr. Carter leaned forward. Have you ever studied it? Really studied its behavior and biology? From a great distance only, Veltar replied. We have watched it through our sensors for centuries. It sleeps during the day in deep caves, then emerges at night to hunt. It seems to eat everything, plants and animals alike. Since we moved to the sky cities, the surface has become almost empty of life. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. But not from fear, from excitement. He could see the same look in Colonel Barnes' eyes. This was exactly the kind of challenge that humans had been dealing with for thousands of years. High Counselor, Jake said carefully, we appreciate you sharing this with us. On our world, we've learned that understanding dangerous creatures is the first step to dealing with them. You do not understand, Veltar said, his skin flashing with urgent colors. This is not some simple predator. The Devourer is the reason our entire civilization exists in the sky. It is why we developed this technology, why we live as we do. It has shaped everything about us. Amy Rodriguez, who had been quiet during the conversation, finally spoke up. What does it look like exactly? Like death given form, Veltar replied. 12 feet tall, covered in natural armor plating. Its mouth is filled with teeth like knives, and its saliva burns through metal. It moves faster than seems possible for something so large. Colonel Barnes nodded thoughtfully. Interesting. The casual way he said it made all the Zephyrians in the room step back in shock. Jake had to hide a smile. Rick Barnes had hunted dangerous game on 4 different continents. A 12-foot predator would be challenging, but not impossible. We should probably get some rest, Jake said diplomatically. This has been a very educational day. As they were escorted to their guest quarters, Jake caught Amy's eye. She nodded slightly, understanding the silent message. Tonight, they would have a very interesting conversation with the crew. Jake Morrison sat in his quarters aboard the New Horizon, reading through the mission reports. It was late, but sleep was the last thing on his mind. The conversation with High Counselor Veltar kept replaying in his head. An entire alien civilization. Living in fear of a single creature seemed impossible to him. A soft knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. "Come in." Colonel Rick Barnes entered, followed by Dr. Lisa Carter and Amy Rodriguez. Jake wasn't surprised to see them. He had been expecting this meeting. "We need to talk, Captain," Rick said, settling into a chair. "About what we heard today." "The Devourer," Lisa added, her eyes bright with curiosity. "I've been thinking about it all evening. A single predator that has shaped an entire civilization's development. It's incredible from a scientific standpoint." Amy pulled up a chair. "I've been monitoring Zephyrian communications. They're absolutely terrified that we might ask to see the surface. Some of them think we're crazy just for being curious about it." Jake leaned back in his chair. "What are you all thinking?" "I think we need to go down there," Rick said bluntly. "We can't form a proper alliance with these people without understanding what they're truly facing. And honestly, this Devourer sounds like something we should know about." "From a scientific perspective, it's fascinating," Lisa agreed. "A single apex predator that has maintained dominance over an entire planet for thousands of years. The ecological implications alone are worth studying. And if we're going to have a relationship with the Zephyrians," Amy added, "we need to understand their culture. This creature has defined everything about how they live." Jake nodded slowly. He had been thinking the same things. "The question is whether we can convince them to let us try." "They won't," Rick said confidently. "They'll think we're asking them to help us commit suicide." "Then we ask anyway," Jake decided. "Worst case, they say no. Best case, we learn something that could help both species." The next morning, Jake requested another meeting with High Counselor Veltar. The alien leader agreed, though he seemed nervous about what the humans might want to discuss. They met in the same quiet chamber as before. Veltar was accompanied by 2 other council members, both of whom looked worried. "High Counselor," began carefully, "we've been thinking about what you told us yesterday, about the Devourer." Veltar's skin immediately darkened. "What about it, Captain Morrison? We would like to study it. From a safe distance, of course. We think understanding this creature better might help us understand your people better." The silence that followed was complete. All 3 Zephyrians stared at Jake as if he had just suggested jumping off the floating city without a parachute. "Study it?" one of the council members whispered. "Captain Morrison," Veltar said slowly, "I do not think you understand what you are suggesting. The Devourer is not something to be studied. It is death itself. On our world," Jake explained, "we've learned that the best way to deal with dangerous creatures is to understand them. How they behave, what they need, how they think. The Devourer does not think," Veltar replied. "It only kills." Dr. Carter leaned forward. "High Counselor, every creature has patterns of behavior. Even the most dangerous predators on our world follow certain rules. If we could observe this creature safely, we might learn something useful." "There is no safe way to observe the Devourer," the second council member said. "It senses all life within great distances. Nothing can hide from it." "We have technology that might help," Colonel Barnes suggested. "Stealth systems, long-range sensors, defensive equipment." Veltar's forearms moved in agitation. "You do not understand. We have the most advanced technology in this part of the galaxy. We have sensors that can detect a single insect from orbit. We have weapons that can destroy mountains. We have shields that can stop the most powerful energy blasts. None of it matters against the Devourer. Then how do you know so much about it?" Amy asked. "Centuries of painful observation," Veltar replied. "We have lost thousands of our best warriors and scientists trying to understand that creature. Every attempt to study it has ended in death." Jake could see the fear in the alien's eyes, but he could also see something else. Shame. The Zephyrians were ashamed of their fear, ashamed of being driven from their own planet's surface. "High Counselor," Jake said gently, "we're not asking you to come with us. We're asking for permission to go ourselves." "No," Veltar said immediately. "Absolutely not. We cannot allow our first human guests to die on our world. The shame would be unbearable." "But what if we don't die?" Rick asked. What if we succeed in learning something new about this creature? Impossible, the first council member said. The Devourer has killed everything that has ever challenged it. It is perfect in its purpose. Dr. Carter pulled out her tablet and showed them images from Earth. These are some of the predators from our world. This is a grizzly bear. It's 8 feet tall, weighs 800 pounds, and can run 30 miles per hour. This is a saltwater crocodile. It has the strongest bite force of any animal on our planet. This is a great white shark, one of the ocean's most efficient killers. The Zephyrians looked at the images with interest, but also confusion. These creatures are dangerous, Lisa continued, but humans study them, work around them, and sometimes even hunt them. We've learned that understanding a predator is the first step to surviving it. Your creatures are nothing compared to the Devourer, Veltar said, but his voice lacked conviction. Maybe not, Jake agreed, but the principle is the same. Every predator has strengths and weaknesses. Every creature has limits. The Devourer has no limits, Veltar insisted. Then let us find out, Rick said. Let us go to the surface and see this creature for ourselves. If we're wrong, we'll retreat immediately. If we're right, maybe we can help. The three Zephyrians talked among themselves in their musical language for several minutes. Jake could hear the worry in their tones, but also something that might have been hope. Finally, Veltar turned back to them. You truly wish to do this? To face the Devourer? Yes, Jake said simply. Then you are either the bravest beings we have ever met, or the most foolish, Veltar replied. Perhaps both. We'll need equipment, Rick said. Weapons, sensors, communication gear. We will provide you with our best, Veltar said. Though I fear it will not be enough. We'll also need information, Lisa added. Everything you know about the creature's behavior, its territory, its hunting patterns. And we'll need a clear landing zone, Amy said. Somewhere we can set up? A base camp and establish communications. Veltar was quiet for a long moment. There is a place, he said finally. A clearing near the great forest where the Devourer usually hunts. We have sensors there, old ones that we use to track its movements. But Captain Morrison, you must understand, once you land on the surface, we cannot help you. Our people will not go down there, not even to rescue you. We understand, Jake said. No, Veltar replied sadly. I do not think you do. But we will honor your request. When do you wish to begin this madness? Tomorrow, Rick said. I'll need time to select a team and review the equipment. Very well, Veltar said. We will prepare everything you need. But first, there is something you must see. He led them to another chamber, this one filled with screens and displays. Images of the planet's surface showed vast empty landscapes. Dead forests and barren plains. This is what the Devourer has done to our world, Veltar explained. Once our planet was full of life. Forests covered the continents, and the oceans teemed with creatures. Now only the Devourer remains below. The images were sobering. Jake could see the ecological devastation that centuries of a single apex predator had caused. It feeds on everything, Veltar continued. Plants, animals, even the soil itself. In some places, nothing is safe from its hunger. How big is its territory? Lisa asked. The entire planet, Veltar replied. It moves constantly, always hunting. Our sensors track it, but it never stays in one place for long. Does it have a den or a home base? Rick asked. Yes, deep caves in the northern mountains. But it only rests there during the day. At night, it emerges to hunt. Jake studied the maps and sensor data. The creature's movement patterns showed a kind of intelligence, but also a relentless drive to hunt and kill. We'll be ready tomorrow, he told Veltar. The alien leader nodded sadly. Then may whatever gods you believe in watch over you, Captain Morrison. You will need all the help you can get. As they left the chamber, Jake couldn't help but feel excited. This was exactly the kind of challenge that had driven human exploration for centuries. The unknown, the dangerous, the impossible, tomorrow? They would find out what humans could do against an alien apex predator. The shuttle dropped through the alien atmosphere like a stone. Colonel Rick Barnes sat in the pilot's seat, his hands steady on the controls as he guided them toward the landing zone. Behind him, the rest of the team checked their equipment. Final time, landing zone in sight, Rick announced. Looks clear. Captain Jake Morrison looked out the window at the planet's surface. It was nothing like what he had expected. Instead of the dead wasteland the Zephyrians had described, he saw rolling hills covered with strange purple grass and forests of tall silver trees. It looked almost peaceful. Dr. Carter, what are your readings? Jake asked. Lisa Carter looked up from her scanner. Atmospheric composition is good. Gravity is slightly lighter than Earth, but the life signs are weird, Captain. There's plenty of plant life, but almost no animals. It's like someone removed all the large creatures but left everything else. The Devourer, said Marine Tony Walsh, from his seat. He was a big man with scarred hands and the kind of eyes that missed nothing. Probably ate everything bigger than a bug. Makes sense, agreed Steve Patterson, the other Marine on the team. He was younger than Tony, but just as tough. One big predator, unlimited food supply, no competition. Amy Rodriguez finished setting up her communication equipment. I've got a solid link with the New Horizon and with the Zephyrian City. They're watching us through their sensors. Good, Jake said. Let's get this bird on the ground. The shuttle touched down in a clearing surrounded by the silver trees. Through the windows, Jake could see strange flowers that glowed with soft light and insects that looked like tiny jewels flying between them. Everybody suited up? Rick asked. The team wore the best protective gear the Zephyrians could provide. The suits were made of some kind of metal fabric that felt light as cloth, but was supposed to be stronger than steel. They also carried Zephyrian energy weapons that could supposedly cut through anything. Remember, Jake told his team as they prepared to leave the shuttle, we're here to observe and learn. We don't go looking for trouble. Tony Walsh grinned. What if trouble comes looking for us? Then we deal with it, Rick said simply. They stepped out of the shuttle into the alien air. The gravity felt strange, making every step feel like a small bounce. The air smelled sweet, like flowers and rain. Base camp goes here, Rick decided, pointing to a spot near some large rocks. Good visibility, decent cover, close to the shuttle. If we need to leave fast. The team worked quickly to set up their equipment. Lisa deployed her scientific sensors while Amy established a communication post. Tony and Steve set up a defensive perimeter with motion detectors and warning devices. This is beautiful, Lisa said, studying a cluster of glowing flowers. I can't believe the Zephyrians think of this place as hell. Maybe they've never seen it during the day, Jake suggested. They said the Devourer hunts at night. Speaking of which, Rick said, checking his watch, we've got about 4 hours until sunset. I want everything set up and tested before then. They spent the afternoon learning about their new environment. Lisa collected samples of plants and soil while the others explored the area around their camp. The place was eerily quiet except for the sound of wind in the trees and the buzzing of small insects. I'm not reading any large life forms, Lisa reported. Nothing bigger than those flying bugs? That's not natural, Tony said. Back on Earth, you'd have birds, mammals, reptiles, all kinds of stuff. This place feels empty. The Devourer's been busy, Steve agreed. As the sun began to set, the team gathered around their camp. The alien sunset was spectacular, painting the sky in shades of green and gold. But as darkness fell, the peaceful feeling of the place began to change. Motion sensors are online, Tony reported. I've got a perimeter of about 200 meters around the camp. Communications are good, Amy added. The Zephyrians are asking if we want to abort the mission. Tell them we're fine, Jake said. Any sign of our friend? Not yet, Lisa said, watching her screens. But I'm starting to pick up some strange readings from the north. What kind of readings? Rick asked. Big. Moving fast. And it's headed this way. The team immediately went into alert mode. Tony and Steve took positions behind the rocks with their weapons ready. Rick moved to get a clear field of fire while Jake and the others watched the sensors. Distance? Jake asked. 5 kilometers and closing, Lisa replied. Whatever it is, it's moving in a straight line toward us. It knows we're here, Amy said quietly. How fast is it moving? Rick asked. Lisa checked her readings. About 60 kilometers per hour, through forest. Tony whistled softly. That's fast for something moving through trees. Contact in 3 minutes, Lisa announced. The team fell silent, watching the darkness beyond their camp. The alien night was full of strange sounds, clicking insects, rustling leaves, and something else. A low rumbling that seemed to come from the ground itself. There, Steve whispered, pointing into the forest. At first, Jake saw nothing. Then, the trees began to shake. Something large was moving through them, breaking branches and crushing undergrowth. The rumbling grew louder. Holy hell, Tony breathed. The Devourer emerged from the tree line like a nightmare come to life. It was even bigger than the Zephyrians had described. 12 feet tall and covered in natural armor that looked like black metal. Its head was massive, with jaws that could bite a man in half. 6 eyes glowed red in the darkness, and saliva dripped from its mouth, hissing where it hit the ground. Now I understand why the Zephyrians live in the sky, Amy whispered. The creature stopped at the edge of the clearing, studying the human camp. Its head moved back and forth, sniffing the air. Then it opened its mouth and roared. The sound was like nothing Jake had ever heard. It was loud enough to shake the ground and make his teeth ache. It was the sound of pure hunger and rage. It's testing us, Rick said calmly. Trying to scare us into running. Is it working? Steve asked, his voice tight. Not even close, Tony replied, adjusting his grip on his weapon. The Devourer took a step into the clearing, then another. It moved with surprising grace for something so large, each step calculated and precise. This was not some mindless beast. This was an intelligent predator. 60 meters, Lisa reported, her voice steady despite the terror in her eyes. Let it come closer, Rick ordered. I want to see what it does. The creature continued its approach, never taking its glowing eyes off the humans. At 30 meters, it stopped again and tilted its head as if confused. The humans weren't running. They weren't screaming. They were just standing there, watching it. I don't think it knows what to make of us, Jake observed. Probably never. Seen prey that didn't run? Tony agreed. The Devourer suddenly charged. It moved faster than seemed possible, crossing the remaining distance in seconds. Its claws were extended, its mouth open, ready to tear the humans apart. Now, Rick shouted. The human team moved with practiced precision. Tony and Steve opened fire with their energy weapons while Rick rolled to the side and took aim. The Zephyrian weapons sent bright beams of light that struck the creature's armor, leaving smoking marks but not penetrating. Weapons aren't working. Steve called out, "Switch to explosive rounds." Rick ordered, but the Devourer was already among them. It swung one massive claw at Tony, who barely managed to duck. The claw missed his head by inches and tore through the rock he had been using for cover like it was paper. "Spread out!" Jake yelled. "Don't let it pin us down." The team scattered in different directions, forcing the creature to choose a target. It went after Steve, who was running toward the shuttle. But instead of running in a straight line, Steve zigzagged, using the terrain to his advantage. The Devourer's claws raked the ground where Steve had been a second before. The Marine rolled behind a fallen log and came up firing. Its armor is too thick, Lisa shouted from her position near the communication equipment. Then we don't aim for the armor, Rick replied. He had circled around to the creature's flank and was studying it with the eye of an experienced hunter. Tony, the joints. Aim for the joints. Tony adjusted his aim and fired at the creature's shoulder joint where the armor plates met. This time, the energy beam found its mark. The Devourer roared in pain and spun toward him. "It bleeds," Amy called out. "The thing actually bleeds." Dark liquid was flowing from the wound in the creature's shoulder. It wasn't much, but it proved that the Devourer could be hurt. The creature was angry now. It had expected easy prey, but these strange beings were fighting back. It charged at Tony, who stood his ground until the last second before diving aside. "Steve, the legs!" Rick shouted. Steve fired at the creature's knee joint. The beam struck. home, and the devourer stumbled. For a moment, it looked almost vulnerable. "We can hurt it," Jake said with satisfaction. "We can actually hurt it?" The devourer turned toward Jake, its red eyes blazing with fury. It had never been wounded by prey before. These creatures were different, dangerous in a way it didn't understand. "Fall back to the shuttle," Rick ordered. "Fighting retreat." The team moved in coordinated fashion, with 2 members providing cover while the others retreated. The devourer followed, but more cautiously now. It had learned that these prey could bite back. "Captain," Amy called out, "the Zephyrians are going crazy. They're begging us to get off the planet." "Tell them we're working on it," Jake replied, firing another shot at the creature. Dawn came slowly to the alien world, painting the sky in soft purple and gold. Captain Jake Morrison sat by the dying campfire, cleaning his weapon and thinking about the night before. Around him, his team was doing the same thing. None of them had slept much after the encounter with the devourer. "Blood trail leads north," Tony Walsh reported, returning from his scout of the area. "Big drops every few meters. We hit it good." "How's it moving?" Colonel Rick Barnes asked, looking up from the tactical maps he had been studying. "Favoring its left side," Tony replied. "The shot to its shoulder joint did real damage. It's hurt, but not down." Dr. Lisa Carter finished packing her scientific samples. "I analyzed the blood we collected. It's definitely organic, carbon-based, like Earth life. The creature can be killed, it just takes the right approach." "Speaking of approach," Amy Rodriguez said from the communication station, "the Zephyrians want to talk to us. They sound pretty excited." "Put them through," Jake ordered. High Counselor Veltar's face appeared on the screen. His usually pale skin was flickering with bright colors that Jake was learning meant extreme emotion. "Captain Morrison, we monitored the entire encounter. What you did last night was impossible. In 3,000 years, no one has ever wounded the devourer." "It wasn't that hard," Rick said casually. "Just had to find the right spots to hit. Not that hard." Veltar's voice rose to a higher pitch. "You fought the apex predator of our world and made it retreat. Our greatest warriors died trying to do what you accomplished in minutes." "Well," Jake said diplomatically, "we had good equipment and a solid team. And now?" Veltar asked. "Surely you will return to the safety of your ship?" Jake exchanged glances with his team. They all knew what he was thinking, and from their expressions, they were thinking the same thing. "Actually," Jake said slowly, "we're going to track it." The silence from the communication link lasted so long that Amy checked to see if the connection was still working. "Track it?" Veltar finally whispered. "You mean follow the devourer?" "That's the plan," Rick said, rolling up his maps. "Wounded predator, clear trail, good tracking conditions. Perfect opportunity to study its behavior." "You cannot be serious," Veltar said. "The devourer will be angry now." "Dangerous beyond measure. It will set traps, use its intelligence against you." "Good," Tony said with a grin. "That makes it interesting." Lisa pulled out her scanner. "From a scientific standpoint, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. We can learn more about this creature in a few days than your people have learned in centuries." "Because we were not insane enough to follow it," Veltar protested. "Look," Jake said gently, "we understand your concern. But this is what humans do. We study dangerous things, we learn how they work, and we figure out how to deal with them. By hunting them," Amy added helpfully. "By hunting them," Veltar repeated, his voice hollow. "You're going to hunt the devourer, if it comes to that," Rick said. "But first, we're going to learn everything we can about it." The Zephyrian leader was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was filled with something between awe and terror. "What manner of beings are you humans? What kind of species decides to hunt the thing that has terrorized an entire world?" "The kind that gets things done," Steve Patterson said simply. After ending the communication, the team packed up their camp and began following the blood trail. The devourer had headed north, toward the mountains where the Zephyrians set it. Had its den? "Trail's getting easier to follow," Tony reported after an hour of tracking. "It's bleeding more now. The wound must be opening up as it moves." How far ahead of us do you think it is? Jake asked. Rick studied the tracks and blood drops. Maybe 2 hours. It was moving fast at first, but these newer tracks show it's slowing. Down, pain will do that, Lisa observed. Even apex predators have limits. They moved through the alien landscape at a steady pace. The silver trees gave way to rocky hills and the ground became harder. Strange plants grew between the rocks, some with thorns that glowed like tiny lights. This place is beautiful, Amy said, taking pictures with her scanner. Hard to believe it's supposed to be a hellscape of death? It's not the landscape that's dangerous, Rick reminded her. It's what lives in it. They found the first sign that the Devourer was more than just a simple predator when they came to a narrow canyon. The blood trail led straight to the entrance, but Tony held up his hand for them to stop. Something's wrong, he said, studying the ground. The tracks change here? It stopped bleeding. Stopped bleeding? Lisa asked. That's not medically possible with wounds like we gave it. Unless it did something about the wounds, Rick said. Grimly, Steve checked the canyon walls. Steve moved carefully along the rocky sides of the canyon entrance. After a few minutes, he called out, "Colonel, you need to see this." They gathered around Steve, who was pointing at marks in the rock wall. Deep gouges showed where something large and sharp had scraped against the stone. It used the rocks to cauterize its wounds, Rick said with professional appreciation. Scraped the bleeding areas against rough stone until they sealed up. That shows intelligence, Lisa said, and knowledge of basic medical principles. Great, Amy muttered, a smart monster. Tony was studying the canyon entrance with the eye of an experienced soldier. This is a perfect choke point. Narrow entrance, high walls, only one way in or out. You think it's waiting for us? Jake asked. I think it's learning about us the same way we're learning about it, Rick replied. The question is, do we take the bait? Jake looked at the canyon entrance. Every instinct told him it was a trap. But backing down now would mean losing the wounded creature and wasting their best chance to study it. We go in, he decided. But carefully, I'll take point, Tony volunteered. If this thing wants to play games, let's show it how humans play. They entered the canyon in single file, with Tony leading and Steve bringing up the rear. The walls rose 50 feet above them, creating deep shadows even in the daytime. Their footsteps echoed strangely in the confined space. No blood trail, Tony reported quietly. But there are scratch marks on the ground. It came this way. They had gone about 100 meters when Amy's scanner started beeping frantically. Movement, she whispered. Above us. They looked up to see the Devourer crouched on a ledge 30 feet above them. It had been waiting, perfectly still, for them to walk into its trap. The creature's red eyes glowed with intelligence and malice. Everybody down! Rick shouted. The Devourer leaped from the ledge, its massive form blotting out the sky as it fell toward them. But the humans were already moving, scattering in different directions just as they had been trained. The creature hit the canyon floor with tremendous force, sending up a cloud of dust and rock chips. But instead of landing on helpless prey, it found itself surrounded by 4 humans with weapons ready. Now, Jake yelled. All 4 team members opened fire at once. The energy beams struck the Devourer from multiple angles, targeting the joints and soft spots they had identified in the previous fight. The creature roared in pain and rage, spinning to face first one attacker, then another, but this time was different. The humans weren't just defending themselves. They were attacking with purpose, working together like a pack of wolves. When the creature charged at Tony, Steve and Rick hit it from the sides. When it turned toward them, Tony and Jake struck it from behind. It's favoring the right side now, Lisa called out. The new wounds are affecting its movement. The Devourer tried to use the canyon walls to its advantage, scraping against them to protect its flanks. But the humans adapted immediately, using the ricochets of their energy weapons to hit the creature from unexpected angles. This thing's tough, Steve panted, reloading his weapon. But not invincible, Rick replied, firing another shot that scored. Along the creature's neck, the Devourer suddenly did something unexpected. Instead of continuing to fight, it turned and ran deeper into the canyon. It's retreating again, Amy said in amazement. No, Rick said, studying the creature's movements. It's leading us somewhere. Deeper into its territory, Tony agreed. This isn't retreat. It's strategy. Jake had to admire the creature's intelligence. It had tried a direct ambush and failed. Now it was falling back to ground it knew better, probably hoping to turn the tables on its pursuers. Do we follow? Steve asked. Jake looked at his team. They were all breathing hard, but their eyes were bright with excitement. They had just outfought an apex predator in its own chosen battlefield and made it run. The rush of victory was intoxicating. We follow, he decided. But we stay sharp. This thing is learning about us every minute. They pursued the Devourer deeper into the canyon system. The creature was moving faster now. Despite its wounds, it knew where it was going. Trail's getting fresher, Tony reported. We're gaining. On it. Canyon's opening up ahead, Amy added, checking her scanner. Looks like a large open area. Perfect place for a final confrontation, Rick observed. As they approached the opening. Lisa's scanner began picking up new readings. I'm getting multiple heat sources, she said with concern. Big ones. More than one devourer? Steve asked. No, Lisa said, studying her readings more carefully. These are different. Smaller, but there are a lot of them. They reached the canyon, opening, and stopped in amazement. Spread out before them was a vast underground cavern. Captain Jake Morrison looked around the bone-filled cavern and quickly counted the enemy. 1 adult devourer, wounded but still dangerous, and at least 20 offspring. The young ones were smaller but looked just as deadly as their parent. Defensive. Circle, Colonel Rick Barnes ordered quietly. Watch each other's backs. The team moved into formation, standing back to back in the center of the cavern. The devourer and its offspring began to circle them, moving with coordinated precision that showed this was a hunting pack. They're smart, Dr. Lisa Carter observed, her scanner tracking the creature's movements. They're trying to surround us. Completely before attacking. Smart enough to make mistakes, Tony Walsh replied, adjusting his grip on his weapon. No battle plan survives contact with the enemy. The adult devourer made a series of clicking sounds, and the offspring responded. By spreading out further? It was clear the big creature was the pack leader, directing the hunt. It's using them like soldiers, Amy Rodriguez said with professional admiration. That's sophisticated behavior. Too bad for them we're soldiers too, Steve Patterson added. The attack came without warning. 3 of the young devourers charged. From different directions, while the others held back, ready to exploit any opening, but the humans were ready. Contact left, Tony shouted, firing at the nearest creature. The cavern filled with the sound of energy weapons and roaring predators. The young devourers were fast and aggressive, but they lacked their parents' experience. The humans' coordinated fire brought down 2 of them immediately. The third creature reached Steve before he could fire a second shot. Its claws raked across his armor, leaving deep scratches but not penetrating the Zephyrian metal. Steve rolled backward and came up firing, his shot catching the creature in the chest. First wave down, Rick called out. Stay tight. The adult devourer roared its anger at seeing its offspring killed. It made more clicking sounds, and the remaining young ones moved to new positions. This time, they approached more carefully. It's learning from our tactics, Jake observed. Each attack will be different. Good thing we're learning too, Lisa said, studying her scanner. I'm picking up patterns in their movement. They favor attacking from the left side? Because that's where the adult has its blind spot from our earlier wounds, Rick realized. It's compensating by positioning the pack to protect its weakness. The second attack came from above. Several of the young devourers had climbed the cavern walls and dropped down on the humans from the crystal formations overhead. Above, Amy shouted. This time the humans were caught off guard. One of the creatures landed directly on Tony, knocking him to the ground. Its claws sparked against his armor as it tried to find a weak point. Get it off me, Tony yelled, struggling. To bring his weapon to bear, Steve fired a quick shot that grazed the creature's side, making it jump back. Tony rolled free and came up shooting. His energy beam took the creature in the head, dropping it instantly, but the distraction had cost them. The adult devourer had used the confusion to move closer. Now it was only 20 feet away, its red eyes blazing with hatred. "Big one's coming in?" Rick warned, the adult devourer charged with all the fury of a parent protecting its young. Its massive form covered the distance in seconds, claws extended and mouth open wide, but Jake Morrison had been waiting for this moment, instead of trying. To dodge, he stood his ground and fired directly into the creature's open mouth. The energy beam struck the soft tissue inside, and the devourer's roar turned into a scream of pain. The creature stumbled but didn't stop. It swept one massive claw at Jake, who barely managed to dive aside. The claw missed him by inches and struck the cavern wall, sending up a shower of sparks and rock chips. "Now, all weapons on the big one!" Rick shouted. 4 energy beams struck the adult devourer simultaneously. The creature's armor was thick, but the combined firepower found the weak points the humans had identified. Blood began to flow from multiple wounds. The remaining offspring rushed to defend their parent, but they were too few now. The humans had thinned their numbers, and the survivors were young and inexperienced. Tony and Steve kept them at bay while Jake and Rick focused on the adult. "It's weakening," Lisa called out. "The blood loss is affecting its coordination." She was right. The adult devourer's movements were becoming slower and less precise. It was still dangerous, but it was no longer the perfect killing machine that had terrorized the Zephyrians for centuries. The final moments of the battle came suddenly. The adult devourer made one last desperate charge, throwing everything it had into a final attack. But Jake had seen this tactic before in the wild animals of Earth. The last desperate strike of a dying predator. He stepped aside at the perfect moment, letting the creature's momentum carry it past him. As it stumbled, all 4 humans fired. At once, their beams striking the creature's neck and head, the devourer crashed to the ground and lay still. The remaining offspring looked at their fallen parent, and then at the humans who had killed it. For a moment, the cavern was silent except for the sound of heavy breathing. Then the young devourers did something that surprised everyone. They turned and ran, disappearing into the dark passages that led deeper into the cave system. "They're retreating," Amy said in amazement. "Pack animals," Rick explained. "With the alpha dead, they don't know how to fight as a group anymore." Jake walked over to the fallen devourer and studied it carefully. Even in death, it was impressive. 12 feet of perfect predator, evolved over millions of years to hunt and kill. So what now? Steve asked. Jake looked at his team, then at the dead creature, then at the piles of bones that surrounded them. A slow smile spread across his face. "Now we eat." The others stared at him for a moment, then Tony started laughing. "I like the way." "You think, Captain? Are you serious?" Lisa asked. "Dead serious," Jake replied. "We just killed the apex predator of an entire planet. We're going to taste victory." Rick was already examining the creature's body with the eye of an experienced hunter. "Plenty of good meat here. The muscle tissue looks clean, and Dr. Carter can test it for toxins." "This is insane," Amy said, but she was smiling as she said it. "This is human," Tony corrected, pulling out his survival knife. Over the next hour, the team worked to butcher the devourer. Lisa ran tests on the meat to make sure it was safe to eat, while the others prepared a fire using some of the dried bones scattered around the cavern. "Protein levels are excellent," Lisa reported. "No toxins detected. It's actually quite nutritious." "How does it taste?" Rick asked, taking a bite of the cooked meat. "Like chicken," Steve said, then paused. "Really tough, angry chicken. Not bad, though," Tony added. "Could use some seasoning." Amy was recording everything with her scanner. "The Zephyrians are going to lose their minds when they see this." She was right. Up in the floating city, High Counselor Veltar and the other Zephyrians were watching the humans' activities through their sensors. The aliens stood in stunned silence as they witnessed something that defied everything they thought they knew. About the universe, the humans had not only killed the devourer, they were eating it. "This is impossible," one of the council members whispered. "They are consuming the apex predator of our world." "They are not like us," Veltar said quietly. They are not prey animals seeking protection, they are predators themselves. But what kind of predators hunt other predators? Another council member asked. The most dangerous kind, Veltar replied, back in the cavern. The human team was finishing their meal and preparing to leave. They had collected samples of the Devourer's armor, blood, and tissue for further study. They had also taken detailed scans of the boneyard, documenting the creature's hunting patterns over the decades. Mission accomplished, Jake said, looking around the cavern one last time. We learned what we came to learn. What did we learn? Amy asked. That there's no such thing as an invincible predator, Rick answered. Every creature has weaknesses. Every hunter can become the hunted. And that humans are really good at finding those weaknesses, Lisa added. Plus, alien monsters aren't as scary as they seem, Steve said. They're just big animals with big teeth. And apparently they taste like chicken, Tony finished. The team made their way back through the canyon system following their earlier trail. The journey back to their shuttle was peaceful. Word of the Devourer's death had somehow spread through. The ecosystem and the small animals that had been hiding began to emerge. Look, Lisa said, pointing to a group of small bird-like creatures perched on the silver trees. Life is already returning to areas where it was afraid to go before? The Devourer kept everything in fear, Jake observed. Now that it's gone, the natural balance can start to restore itself. When they reached their shuttle, they found a delegation of Zephyrians waiting for them. High Counselor Veltar and several other officials had actually come down to the planet's surface for the first time in their lives. Captain Morrison, Veltar said, his voice filled with awe. We monitored your entire mission. What you have accomplished is beyond our understanding. We just did what needed to be done, Jake replied simply. You killed the Devourer, Veltar continued. The creature that has held our entire civilization prisoner for 3,000 years, and then you ate it. Well, Tony said with a grin, we were hungry.